Okay, let's dive right into today's explainer. Grab your virtual hiking boots and welcome everyone. Today, I want you to step into the role of a focus learner joining me on a geology field trip. We're heading out to the spectacularly beautiful Hengistbury Head on the south coast of England. We're going to dig into a fascinating coastal processes report, looking at exactly how the raw forces of nature and some heavy-duty human engineering are locked in an ongoing battle to shape this coastline. Here's our itinerary for today's trip. We'll start with a quick welcome to the headland to get our bearings. Then we'll examine the geological layer cake of the cliffs. Next, we'll head down to the beach to see nature's conveyor belt in action, march over to the Double Dykes danger zone, and finally, we'll discuss the long-term future of the coast. Let's get moving. All right, stop number 1. Welcome to the headland, discovering the landscape. So imagine you've just stepped out of the visitor center and you are greeted by this. You can almost feel the sea spray hitting your face, right? Just look at the sheer scale of these sweeping beaches, the rugged cliffs, and the winding paths. It's actually a scheduled ancient monument. People have literally been living and working here for 12,000 years, and well over 1 million people still visit every single year. But to a geologist, Hengistbury Head is way more than just a pretty place for a weekend walk. It's this towering headland of golden sandstone that completely wraps around and encloses the natural harbor where the Stour and Avon rivers meet. And that beautifully illustrates why it matters so much. This massive physical mass of land acts as a vital protective shield for Christchurch Bay, and all the towns safely nestled behind it. Honestly, if this headland wasn't here, the map of the English South Coast would look completely different. Moving on to stop 2, a geological layer cake, 65 million years of history. Okay, as we walk right up to the base of these cliffs, I want you to think of them like a giant layer cake. Seriously, when you look at the face of Hengistbury Head, you are staring straight at 65 million years of history, all compressed into a single view. Over millions of years, the Earth's crust folded, temperatures went wild, and era by era, these distinct ancient environments built this headland layer by layer. We're talking tropical seas, Florida-style Everglades, all the way up to massive Ice Age floods. Let's visually walk up this cliff face together, step by step. Down at the bottom, step 1, you've got the oldest slice of the cake, the Boscombe Sands. It's this purplish black layer trapping the remains of ancient tropical plants. Moving up to step 2, the lower Hengistbury beds. This is olive green, sandy clay left over from subtropical river lagoons. Step 3 brings us the upper Hengistbury beds, greenish clays packed with something super crucial that we'll cover in just a second. Step 4 is the Warren Hill Sands, these gorgeous bands of yellow and white sand, and actually, sand martins nest right in them today. And finally, step 5, the icing on the cake right at the very top, the Pleistocene gravels. This is meltwater gravel that was aggressively dumped there by retreating ice sheets. Now, let's talk about that third layer. It hides something truly fascinating, ironstone daggers. These are heavy chunks of a mineral called siderite, which is basically iron carbonate. Think of these daggers as the cliff's built-in suit of armor, because, well, Hengistbury Head is mostly made of soft, unconsolidated sand and clay. It should just wash away instantly. But as the cliff naturally erodes, these heavy iron nodules fall out, tumble down to the beach, and pile up at the base. They create this tough, protective shield against the waves. Funny enough, Victorian miners actually hauled away a ton of this ironstone back in the day, which, you guessed it, drastically sped up the erosion. Oops. Which brings us to stop 3. Nature's conveyor belt, waves and longshore drift. Standing right here on the shoreline, you can really witness a relentless present-day battle. You've got to understand this concept called longshore drift. Imagine the ocean as this massive, non-stop conveyor belt. Down here in Poole and Christchurch Bays, this conveyor belt creates a well-established, constant movement of sand and shingle eastward along the coast. The sea is literally always trying to pick up the beach and just move it somewhere else. And this is exactly where human intervention steps in. On the left here, check out the Long Groin. It's a major engineered structure built way back in 1938 at the southernmost tip of the headland. On the right, you can see the beach and the vulnerable base of the cliff. We intentionally built that Long Groin to jam up nature's conveyor belt. By blocking that eastward flow, the groin traps the material and keeps the beach nice and wide. And a wide beach is fantastic because it absorbs all that wave energy before it can smash into the soft, unarmored parts of the cliffs. But listen, nature is incredibly stubborn. So the crucial takeaway here is that despite the natural ironstone armor, and despite huge human engineering projects like the Long Groin, the sea is still winning.
inches at a time. The report points out that sections like Warren Hill still experience an active recession rate of 0.5 meter to a full meter every single year. That is a lot of land vanishing.
Let's keep walking eastward to stop 4. The Double Dykes danger. The threat of a coastal breach. We are standing now at the Double Dykes. You'll notice it's a very low-lying dip in the headland. Honestly, this is the absolute most vulnerable and perilous spot on our entire tour. To really grasp the danger here, let's use a spilling bathtub analogy to compare two totally different things: historical overtopping versus a catastrophic breach. Overtopping, that's just the water in your bathtub splashing over the sides because it got a little too high for a second. A catastrophic breach is like someone putting on a heavy boot and violently kicking a permanent hole right through the side of your tub. If we look at the historical data, our bathtub has definitely splashed over. In fact, overtopping happened 5 times over a 129-year stretch, specifically in 1883, 1911, 1924, 1935, and 1976. But here's the key. While those events caused some localized flooding and salty puddles behind the cliffs, they did not cause a full-blown breach into Christchurch Harbour. The tub splashed over, but the structure held firm. So what would it actually take to kick that hole through the bathtub? Well, looking at the extreme tide data from the report, a full breach is actually considered a pretty low risk right now. To tear a hole straight through the Double Dykes, you'd need a severe 1 in 100 or 1 in 200-year storm. We are talking extreme water levels, like 1.75 or 1.83 meters above normal, paired with monstrous North Atlantic hurricane-style waves, kind of like a legendary storm that hit back in 1824. It would take a total monster of an event to rip through that land entirely. Let's hike out of this low ground and head up to our final stop, Section 5, the future of the coast, management, and our legacy. Okay, we're up at a high clifftop overlook now. Let's catch our breath and face the grim reality laid out in this Coastal Processes report. If policymakers threw their hands up and chose a no active intervention strategy, meaning we just stop fixing the beaches and let the groins decay, the sea would take over, fast. Frequent splashing over would rapidly eat away at the frontage until it carved a brand new, permanent tidal channel right through the land, dropping it below sea level. You see, Poole and Christchurch Bays are immature. Naturally, they just want to join forces and become one giant bay. But here is the absolute most profound realization from the entire data report. Quote, "The more important decision would be whether or not, once a breach had formed, to defend Hengistbury Head itself." Think about that for a second. The real issue isn't whether we can magically stop a breach from ever happening, because with rising sea levels, nature is going to win eventually. The real question is, once the sea cuts through, will we choose to spend millions heavily engineering the broken ruins of this headland, basically using it as a giant offshore breakwater just to save the towns of Bournemouth and Christchurch from taking the full force of the Atlantic? So, to wrap up our field trip today, I want you to look down at the dirt beneath your feet. There's wind-blown sand and soil building up on top of this headland right now, just as it has been for the last 12,000 years. If Hengistbury Head somehow survives rising sea levels, this dirt is going to become the geology of tomorrow. It'll be a brand new layer on our geological layer cake, which leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. When geologists look at the rocks of our future millions of years from now, what is that layer going to say about how we chose to manage, engineer, and defend this magnificent coast? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.